Good morning or good afternoon, everyone. My name is Chris Fair. I'm the president of Resonance Consultancy. Thanks for joining us today for a webinar with myself and Richard Cutting-Miller, the executive vice president of Resonance Consultancy. Resonance, our firm specializes in research, planning, and marketing strategy for destinations and developments. Some of our recent clients include the City of Vancouver, for whom we produced the city's first ever tourism master plan. We're currently working with the Aruba Tourism Authority in the Caribbean to create a strategic business plan for that organization. And we've been involved a lot over the past year with the Ministry of Tourism in Haiti, helping to envision and build a tourism industry from the ground up, while other of our clients are in places such as Hawaii, Kukui'ula, a resort master plan community on the island of Kauai. For these clients and many others, we conduct research and monitor trends in the travel, tourism, and resort development industry. In addition, every 2 years, in partnership with the Luxury Institute, we create a biannual study of the affluent travel leisure habits of affluent households in the United States. Those findings and our research for these clients have been pulled together to put together what we think are 20 of the most meaningful trends for the tourism and development industry in 2014 and the years ahead. As we go through the presentation, please feel free to submit questions via the chat window to the left side of your screen, and we'll get to those towards the end of the presentation, which should take just under an hour, and we'll leave 5 to 15 minutes for questions and answers. I'd like to introduce Richard. Richard was the former executive vice president of the World Travel and Tourism Council for many years. Richard, can you please tell the group a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Thank you, Chris. Yes, I was with WTTC for about 16 years, working in about 65 countries and 350 or so destinations around the world. And our focus was very strongly on tourism policy, tourism master plan, tourism strategy, helping destinations and governments in those places organize their resources, their marketing and their promotion and policy and strategy for really to realize the greatest potential of travel and tourism in their economies. So I've joined Resonance a couple of years ago now, and am the principal tourism consultant for Resonance. So we're working in a lot of different places, in a lot of different countries, helping them grow their industry. Let's start off our trends this week, and by the trends, not necessarily a series of trends that are particularly surprising to many people, but we feel are particularly important for several reasons to focus on. So what I'd like to do is start here on a macroeconomic basis. And for those of you who were in London last week at World Travel Market, perhaps you saw some of the research and the results from the latest Euromonitor International, which is reporting that the IMF forecast for global GDP growth next year in 2014 will be 3.8%, very positive around the world. Really thanks to positive growth in the Eurozone, which is coming back, the economy, of course, picking up in the U.S., and a further increase in a long list of emerging markets. The long-term economic potential of the BRIC countries is very exciting. The BRICS being Brazil, Russia, India, and China, and other emerging markets remain solid. It is expected to drive positive performance of the global economy over the 2015 to 2017 time period. For travel and tourism, global tourist arrivals and inbound spending are predicted to be continue to be vital over the upcoming forecast period of 214 to 217, essentially boosted by increased demand from the emerging markets. In the Americas, despite bumpy economic conditions, demand continues to grow and is likely to outpace supply action. This will result in pushing up prices and driving value sales. Incoming tourism will be a bright spot in this outlook, with strong growth in regional and long-haul travelers. In Europe, tourist arrivals and incoming receipts have started to pick up thanks to increasing flows from both advanced and emerging markets. In the Middle East, there is a visible recovery in travel and tourism in 2012, with a 4.3% increase in the number of inbound trips despite the ongoing unrest. In 2013, we should see further growth, although there has been a noticeable shift away from destinations, as you would expect, such as Egypt, Syria, and Lebanon, towards the Gulf markets, which have benefited actually from the crisis in the Middle East. In Africa, strong economic growth, particularly in East Africa, is helping grow business tourism throughout the region, while rising incomes and urbanization are driving increasing domestic travel. Also in Africa, source markets are changing. They're moving away from the traditional Europe and US focus and now looking at visitors from the BRICS and the Middle East becoming much more important visitor origination markets. Of course, Asia remains the leading global region for economic growth, with all tourism categories showing consistent increases for the next few years. Low-cost airlines are thriving in Asia, encouraging intra-regional travel. On the subcontinent in India, after a slight decline in 2012, India's travel and tourism industry is rebounding, with strong results for 2013. Inbound travel is benefiting from the rupee's devaluation, recording very robust growth. In India, air travel is a key to their success story, with increasing numbers of travelers taking to the skies, especially with low-cost carriers. So overall, the global growth outlook for travel and tourism is quite robust.
Having just come back from ITB Asia, Singapore, a couple of weeks ago, and the International Tourism Development Forum for the Asia-Pacific region, certainly this comes as no surprise to anyone that China is on the forefront of everyone's mind in the industry, and it's for good reason. In terms of the pure numbers, in 2012, the number of outbound tourists from China were over 80 million, an increase of 18.5% over 2011, and that's forecast to reach 94 million trips this year, another increase of 15% from 2012. So all that is to say is that China has now surpassed the US and Germany to become the largest source of outbound travelers in the world. And what many people were talking about at ITB Asia was the new tourism law implemented in October by the Chinese government, which is now leveling the playing field between group travel pricing and free and independent travel. So there's already a trend towards more independent travelers, and with the new tourism law that's now been implemented, which governs the behavior and operations of tourists and the tourism industry, both in China and for Chinese travelers abroad, it's expected that more and more Chinese outbound travelers will look to independent travel over groups. So we think that's an important trend to be monitoring. It's interesting to note, though, for all of the growth in China and everyone that we talk to in various destinations, that according to a study by Dao, which is TripAdvisor's survey of Chinese travelers, only 4 destinations outside of Asia are in the top 20, and those are Paris, Rome, New York, and London. So we think we still have a long way to go, particularly in the Americas, to thinking about and understanding how we target this burgeoning travel market in order to attract them to places outside of New York.
Thank you, Chris. Let's turn our attention now to South America. At ITB, the World Travel Trends Research Report was released a few months ago, which reported that in South America, there's been a 12% increase in outbound trips to a new all-time high, essentially driven by Brazilians. but growth is likely to slow next year, mostly as the Brazilian outbound travel is forecast to slow to a moderate 2% growth rate after these several boom years. Factors including general economic growth, upward mobility, and more disposable income have combined with a strong currency have released Brazilians' pent-up demand for travel. This has been driving not only domestic tourism, which grew 18% a year between 2007 and 2011, but also outbound travel. And in fact, international tourism expenditure soared 50% in 2010 and rose a further 30% in 2011. The U.S. and Europe were the main beneficiaries of this outbound travel. Good growth is expected for the end of year 2013 as well. Brazilians, as you know, are very welcome visitors at many destinations as they have proven to be high spenders, having risen to 12th place in the ranking of international travel spending. For 2014, there is some uncertainty surrounding prospects for Brazil as their economy has clearly slowed down in recent quarters. A high 45% of Brazilians said the financial crisis is likely to affect their general travel behavior next year. And in fact, the number of Brazilians intending to travel has declined from 42% a year ago to only 29% for next year. At present, as you most likely know, Brazil is gearing up to host a series of major events, including the World Cup in 2014 and the Summer Olympics in 2016, which not only involve large-scale investment in infrastructure and public services, but will most likely result in a switch from significant outbound travel to greater emphasis on domestic travel. So all in all, South America has been growing only second in demand to China and several of the Asia countries, but also a very strong market to be looking at and focusing on, and as over the foreseeable forecast future.
And just in regards to South America, we think that's also a particularly important market to be looking at for the sale of and development of vacation homes. It's clearly evidenced in areas such as South Florida, who've benefited from those markets. Moving on from the geographics to talking a little bit about demographics. Millennials, of course, have been much talked about, and will come as no surprise to anyone that this is an important trend to be monitoring. But what's interesting with millennials are some of the specific findings that have come out of our research and the research of others over the past couple of years. We're starting to learn a little bit more about their behavior and see that it's quite different than what we believe the baby boomers' behavior would have been at the same point in their lives, whether that was 25 or 35 years ago. Millennials so far are much more interested in international travel than non-millennials, and part of that we think is due to the fact, particularly in the US and Canada, that the millennials are a much more diverse generation than any generation before. So as a result, they're much more propensity to travel abroad and in places further afield. They're also, interestingly, much more interested in urban rather than resort destinations. And it would be interesting if we had data sets for baby boomers to understand exactly where they were traveling to 30 years ago. But what we do see is clearly the majority of millennials are interested in urban rather than resort destinations, and that could have some significant implications for the resort industry, in the decades to come. Millennials are also forming families and having children later in life, so they're much more likely to travel for leisure in groups with extended family or with friends, and we'll talk about multi-generational travel in a moment. When it comes to technology, it's no surprise that millennials are twice as likely as non-millennials to use their mobile phones to show travel pictures to friends, share photos on social media such as Facebook, blogs, etc. And we think this is one of the most important opportunities for destination marketing organizations in particular, and resort operators and developers, is to think about social media not so much as a means in terms of marketing to pull this generation to your destination, but to use and leverage social media by providing better digital wireless access throughout a destination so that millennials can share their photos and experiences and broadcast those out while they're in your destination or community as a means of marketing to a broader audience. In addition, it should also probably come as no surprise that 8 in 10 millennials consider online travel reviews either somewhat or very important. So the importance of peer reviews is not going to lessen by any means, as the millennials and future generations become a larger share of the travel and tourism audience. Peer reviews are going to become increasingly important.
Thank you, Chris. Actually, moving towards the other end of the age spectrum, let's talk a little bit about unstoppable elders. According to recent research by Intech Europe, the elders target population is estimated, the elders target travel and tourism population is estimated between 1.3 and 1.6 billion persons worldwide. The main reasons we're seeing for elders travel are for rest and relaxation, with two main ranges of trip duration: short stays of 3 to 4 days and longer stays of 9 to 10 days. Accommodation choices are variable, as you would expect, but hotel stays are still the most common. And word of mouth, unlike the millennials that are communicating online, word of mouth information for elders is still a very important source of information for travel arrangements. Not surprisingly, the potential of shifting tourism away from peak season to off-season is most favorable for the elders market, as you would expect. Most of these people, travelers, are not working full-time, and it makes them possible to plan their vacations, their holidays throughout the year at their own convenience, or to take advantage of great discounts or better offers. And frankly, they have not only the time to do so, but the purchasing power to do so. And as a benefit to the destination, of course, non-seasonal tourism increases or flattens out the peak and valleys of their visitor arrivals and spending, really making sure that occupancies remain at high levels and people are busy and spending continues in those off-peak seasons. So that's always a plus. Additional research by TNM published recently in Tourism Tidbits reports seniors are not only the developed world's wealthiest group, but they are also the most demanding. This means that senior citizens are not afraid to communicate what they want and complain until they get it. Those organizations, businesses, and institutions that are providing good customer service have an opportunity to thrive with this market. Seniors, elders also require tourism certainty. As we age, we tend to become more psychocentric, of course, and our travel habits and demands become especially pronounced. Especially in an age of terrorism and places of high crime, seniors will demand good security. Those cities, those destinations that have developed tourism-oriented policing and protection services will have an added marketing advantage. Seniors also tend to show higher levels of frustration. This frustration manifests itself in lack of patience, refusal to read small print, and almost zero tolerance for poor service. Tourism destinations that wish to capture the senior market need to review not only their physical structures, but their informational brochures, their signage, their levels of customer service, and visitor security and safety provided. Seniors also tend to like quieter and less congested areas. This migration towards the livable outer fringes means that tourism facilities can no longer just be centered in city centers, but should be distributed to other places throughout the destination. Lastly, the lack of good airline service will become a major obstacle for senior tourism. many of these potential travelers are now shying away from air travel because of the hassle factor, whether it's going through, safety and, the security screening at TSA, or having, airlines that are jam-packed full with, small seats, and dealing with, just tons and tons of people going through the airports. It does pose a challenge to many seniors. So I guess the message here is that not only are seniors a market segment that need to be paid attention to in terms of advertising and promotion, but also destinations need to be very much aware of the physical infrastructure and make sure that their destination is properly suited to accommodate seniors.
Thanks, Rick. Looking now at another subset market is the affluent audience and luxury travel. And we spent a good bit of time and resources working with the Luxury Institute to study and understand the aspirations of affluent households in the U.S. And we think this is important because the number of U.S. millionaires is projected to grow from what was 10.5 million in 2011 to 20.5 million in 2020. So this audience is expected to double in this current decade. And when we look at affluent households in the U.S., which we define as those with household income of 150K plus, they account for an estimated 29% of all spending on air travel and lodging. So from a pure dollars perspective, this audience continues to command and be responsible for a growing share of the travel and tourism pie. And despite all the talk about growth in the wealth in China and other Asian countries, which is phenomenal on absolute terms, the number of millionaires in China today is still less than half of the number of millionaires in a smaller country such as Canada. In fact, even by 2020, according to Deloitte's projections, China will only have roughly about the same number of millionaires as Canada does. So we think it's important to recognize that when it comes to the affluent space and luxury travel, that this category is going to continue to be dominated by U.S. households and to a lesser extent those from Japan and Europe through 2020. One trend that dovetails into that is what we like to characterize as conspicuous leisure. And we've all heard much discussion since the recession in 2008 of the shift towards consuming experiences rather than goods. But what does that all mean? Well, conspicuous leisure was coined by the same Thomas Dublin that coined the term conspicuous consumption. Conspicuous leisure is really about signaling your social status through the consumption of experiences rather than material goods. And we all know ourselves or friends or our children have seen them sharing stories and travel about the experiences that they're having. So experiences, we can see, are really becoming a means by communicating status. So the trend towards more affluent travel, the trend towards consuming experiences really dovetails nicely with the growth in social media, in that social media is the key vehicle to facilitate the sharing of the experiences that you have while on vacation. According to our research with the Luxury Institute, in the residence report, we identified and evaluated a wide range of different goods, services, experiences, everything from fine jewelry to luxury cars to homes and gated communities. And it's interesting to see what rises to the top of the list in terms of most desired luxuries of affluent U.S. households today. Number one is smartphone, which wasn't even in the top 10 when we started this study back in 2008. Vacation home has continued to be either number one or number two in every single survey that we conduct. So while the U.S. real estate market and recreational real estate in general has taken a bit of a hit in recent years, we think it's important to note that owning or purchasing a vacation home is still one of the most widely held aspirations of U.S. households. When you look down the list to number three is the freedom to work from home. Number four, very important for the travel and tourism industry, is taking exotic vacations. And number five is extended time off work. So for us, this is pretty clear evidence of the importance of leisure in our lives today, and opens the door to a wide variety of opportunities for the travel and tourism industry, and is important for the recreational real estate development industry to think about as well.
Let's turn to Gay on the Go. The world's leading LGBT tourism trade association last week at World Travel Market released new research showing that the annual spending on tourism by lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people will exceed $200 billion for the first time in 2014. However, LGBT tourists are choosing, in some cases, not to travel to countries or destinations where their local comrades do not enjoy the same equal legal rights that they do, according to research from consulting firm OutNow Global, also released last week at World Travel Market. Their study shows that 73% of respondents said that the position of the local LGBT community affects where they decide to spend their holidays and spend their visitor dollars. This, frankly, is a case of customers choosing to take their business elsewhere, to places where they know they will be respected and equally treated and frankly just welcomed. So there are a number of destinations, such as Canada, of course, to the north, Sweden, France, Spain, Belgium, UK, New Zealand, turning to the States, of course, New York, California, and now Hawaii, as of yesterday or the day before, that are looking to secure a greater portion of the total LGBT tourism revenues. This is a very interesting mix of politics and tourism spending. I'm sure everyone has heard some of the reports from Russia and some of the propaganda law issues that have been put into place, and the calls from this community, from this big market segment to boycott the Sochi Olympics. I don't think that's going to happen, but I think it does send a strong message from this market that, hey, we've got alternative choices. We've got lots of different products and services, travel and tourism products and services to choose from, and we'll vote with our dollars. So a very clear message here for destinations that want to speak to and attract this very important demographic.
Thanks, Rick. Turning to another lens on the demographics is, multi-generational travel. And this will come as no surprise to anyone. We've seen this much discussed in the media in recent years. But what I think is important to note with this is the continued growth in multi-generational travel. That it's interesting to note that while baby boomers have fewer children at home every year, we continue to see in the research that baby boomers are doing more and more family travel. So it's an interesting dichotomy that as they have fewer children living with them, that they're organizing more and more family-oriented travel. In fact, 40% of families report last year having gone on a multi-generational vacation, and 77% said it was planned around a milestone event, whether that's a birthday, a reunion, a wedding, etc. Another stat that we pulled out is that grandparents travel almost 25% more than the average leisure traveler. So as we talked about the elder travelers earlier, we can see that seniors are living longer, healthier, and are much more mobile than they were in the past. And I think it's also interesting that as we become more virtually connected, we may not be as connected in the physical space, and travel, whether that's going to a resort or having a resort home, is the vehicle that allows us to gather multiple generations of our families together for these key points within the year. In sum, attracting the multi-generational market is really about memories. That comes as no surprise, but the key implications to that, it's also about convenience. And here's where we think the hospitality industry is really lagging, that we haven't moved much beyond adjoining hotel rooms in terms of thinking about products and services that cater specifically to the multi-generational group. And then, of course, if you're organizing a group and you're a grandparent and you're bringing grandchildren, children, 10, 12 people together, the costs do add up. So value in terms of how can we package and price tour and travel together. Certainly, I think one of the leaders in this particular sector has been the cruise industry, has been one of the quickest to adapt to this particular trend. That 10, 15 years ago, we wouldn't have seen many multi-generational groups on cruise liners, and today we see several, and that's because many of the cruise lines have created specific amenities and programs that cater to the interests and diverse range of activities that someone from 6 years old is looking for, right through to somebody that's 66.
Thank you, Chris. This is actually one of my favorite trends, and it really shows where luxury travelers are seeking out ways to stay active and healthy on the road, essentially carving out time for bike rides, hiking, or water sports. Clients in this category want to go to places where they have plenty of options to take day trips and enjoy active excursions, from trekking and diving in Vietnam to fly fishing or whitewater rafting in Park City, Utah, or Colorado. Growth in adventure travel market has accelerated, according to Forbes.com. Accelerated at a rate of 65% yearly since 2009, according to Adventure Tourism Market Study by George Washington University and the Adventure Travel Trade Association. The study estimates the value of global outbound adventure travel sector to be $263 billion plus an additional $82 billion spent for gear and apparel and accessories. So essentially, the adventure traveler spent more than $345 billion in 2012 for travel related to adventure. Adventure travel, technically includes 2 out of 3 criteria. First is a connection to nature. Second is interaction with culture, and third, a physical activity. This all translates into soft adventure options like hiking or kayaking or rafting or snorkeling or volunteer tourism and archaeological expeditions, while on the harder side, adventure tourism includes activities such as caving or climbing, heli-skiing, kite surfing, trekking, and paragliding. According further on this research, they talk about who these adventure travelers are, and essentially they are a younger crowd with an average age of about 36 years old. They take a trip of about 10 days in duration, and nearly 54% of all travelers actually plan to participate in an adventure activity on their next trip, with 73% of adventure travelers planning to do something on their next trip. So, that tells me 54% of all travelers are looking at adventure activities for their trip. That tells me that destinations, boy, they better be paying attention to this market, because and they better be having activities and attractions and events for this group to participate in, because half of the traveling public falls into this category. So a very important demographic. Turning to high tech, wired and wireless. Essentially, this is the newest disruptor for travel and tourism. That's mobile, smartphones and tablet devices. Social Media Today reported a few months ago that more than 40% of all online research for travel came from mobile devices, up 25% from the end of 2012. Astounding. Used to be that just finding research online was hard, was amazing enough. Now it's all moving to mobile. Expedia reports that millennials are more likely than their parents or their older friends to book their business travel on mobile phones or tablets, a that seems to be slowly catching on among the 46 to 65-year-olds. Yet the biggest challenge this brings to the DMO world is real-time access. How can we engage with the travelers while they're at the destination? To make it as a digital destination, frankly, it's critical now to have a separate mobile site for travelers during their trip. We tend to forget that our behavior at the destination is very different than while we're at home or the office research and planning the trip. So I guess the question we should ask, why should our DMO site be the same? Hotels are frankly jumping on this opportunity with new apps. A number of companies, including Handheld Hospitality, Iris Software Systems, and Cordola, are creating apps which facilitate constant interaction between hotels and their guests before, during, and after the stay. Their apps can be customized for each hotel. For example, when guests book the rooms, hotels send the guest an email letting them know about the app, which of course they can download and start planning their trip. The apps essentially act as a virtual concierge with information about local restaurants and attractions. Essentially, the apps are trying to eliminate the need for an in-room directory or a concierge in the lobby. Eventually, guests will have all the information they could possibly want about the resort or destination at their fingertips. While the hotel or resort can be instantaneously in touch with all the app users, offering information on activities or add-on sales or discounts or other opportunities, or even providing them with emergency notifications. It should be and can be no different for destinations. A great example of this is by a travel destination is the mobile operations in Singapore with its Handy project. By providing smartphones for a small daily fee, Singapore is giving value to what travelers are seeking out the most: Wi-Fi connectivity, unlimited local and international calls, and apps answering the most sought-after queries like maps and translation and currency and show times and transportation details. So, whether we like it or not, wireless mobile use of research and operations at the destination is here, and it's going to continue growing and growing. And we need to be in front of the cart instead of behind the cart to make sure that all destinations are properly prepared to take advantage of this opportunity.
The next one is one that term we love to hate, but called bleisure, or bizcations is another way of phrasing the combination of business travel and leisure travel together. And this has been talked about a little bit in the media over the years, but more anecdotally. And recently we've actually been able to find some research that puts some hard numbers to this trend. In Orbitz in 2012, in one of their reports and surveys of business travelers, found that 72% of business travelers said they take extended executive trips that have a leisure component. In North America, you can see that 54% of 18 to 30-year-olds reported bringing a significant other on a business trip versus 36% of those 31 to 45 and 16% of those 46 to 65. Of course, those millennials and the 18 to 30-year-olds, many of them don't have children, so they have the ability to bring a significant other on a trip, but we think that fact alone is going to change their behavior over time and look towards more combinations of business and leisure travel together. I think what we need to look at as an industry is in terms of the packaging of products, of how do we create stay and play type pricing and programming that allows somebody who might be in a city for a conference or a convention for a couple of days to add on to that stay with a couple of nights for recreational purposes. Another interesting stat to support this trend is, based on our research with the Luxury Institute, we found that over the years, affluent U.S. households are using their vacation homes for longer and longer periods of time. 10, 15 years ago, it used to be that the average usage of a vacation home was only 21 to 28 days per year. Now we're seeing that fully 27%, or 1 in 4 vacation homeowners, are now using their vacation home for 2 months or more per year. So there's a strong trend towards this ability to be able to work and play together, and those clear divisions between leisure travel and business travel are starting to blur.
Thank you, Chris. We've always known that shopping tourism is, or shopping is one of tourism's primary or largest activities, but recent research has shown that tourists spend, actually on the spending side, approximately 1/3 of their total tourism expenditure on retail purchases. Astounding when you consider that tourism is always considered, the spending on airlines or hotels or restaurants, but retail purchases actually account for 1/3 of their total spending. Destinations are therefore more and more interested, as you would expect, in creating shopping opportunities to increase both their attractiveness and their visitor spending. There, of course, are several kinds of shopping related to tourism. First, there's shopping for travel and tourism products before a trip, such as swimsuits, camping gear, and travel accessories. Then there's add-on shopping at the visitor destination, essentially gift shops from the attraction or the destination, or essentials like food and drink. Third, there's shopping which acts essentially as a distinct tourism activity, where the experience is designed as a shopping destination and for the most part requires participants to travel as a prerequisite for shopping. For example, if you're going to the Mall of America or other places where shopping is really the key aspect of the trip itself. And then last is shopping to experience the local culture through local products, local craftspeople or artists, and a desire to purchase essentially something which truly belongs to or is from the destination. Shopping is showing how important it is in many international destinations, especially in the Middle East right now, where hotels are becoming integral to shopping malls, or in places like London, where Harrods is putting in Mandarin-speaking sales associates so they can take advantage of the great spending that's being done by Chinese visitors, or shopping fairs in Gulf countries. This is all evidence that shopping is big business, and countries are looking for lots of opportunities to increase their inbound tourism. In fact, in the Middle East alone, there are 10 major shopping malls under construction and estimated to be completed in 2014. And having been to Dubai and a few other Middle East destinations myself, the shopping malls there are just huge and amazing and over the top. Some of them I know in Dubai have, the indoor ski resorts, so pretty big attractions. Frankly, though, what they're doing is they're targeting these growing middle classes in Brazil, Russia, India, and China who are traveling just for shopping. They're looking for high brand name products. They're going to department stores that, frankly, are rolling out the red carpet by offering, payment options for out of country shoppers and visitors, hiring staff to speak languages and providing customized shopping tours. What I find very interesting is that although shopping is, one of the biggest tourism activities around the world, and while this research now shows that shopping is 1/3 of total tourism expenditures, so few destinations around the world have a retail tourism strategy. Essentially, many destinations are relying on the status quo or organic development of their retail sector for this business, whereby they would never do that in terms of an attraction or meetings and event strategy. So I find it interesting that shopping has developed organically in many destinations and not without a strategic plan. So very interesting, and perhaps those destinations that understand that and put in place and develop shopping strategies, retail strategies, are likely to have one leg up on the competition.
Thanks, Rick. Now, in more novel trend, and this is more based on anecdotal evidence than any hard numbers, is the emergence of and growth in creative tourism. Now, creative tourism is a subset of cultural tourism. We think UNESCO has come up with the best definition, which is creative tourism is travel directed toward an engaged and authentic experience with participative learning in the arts, heritage, or special character of a place. And it provides a connection with those who reside in the place and create this living culture. One of the projects we've been working on in Haiti has been the restoration and redevelopment of the town of Jacmel. And it's been interesting to discover the riches in such a poor country with respect to arts, music, and culture. And our strategy for the redevelopment of the town center of Jacmel has been focused around turning old coffee and essential oil warehouses into studios, galleries for educational programming, etc., all around the arts. We think that's an exciting opportunity and an idea that many destinations can leverage. As our travelers become more and more sophisticated and more experienced and continue to search out new and different experiences, we think they're going to be looking to immerse themselves in the culture in some way. And here you see how the creative tourist is described as somebody who's always a participant, somebody who learns by doing, someone who finds enjoyment and fulfillment in developing new abilities. In fact, in our research on affluent households, the number one thing that they're looking for are once-in-a-lifetime experiences, and the number two they're looking for out of their leisure experiences is to learn something new. So those are two pieces of data that we think point strongly towards the emergence of creative tourism as a potential strong trend that will shape travel and tourism and resort destinations in the years to come. Whole living is another trend that is a little bit more novel, but we think this is a good way to characterize all of the talk about health and wellness has been much talked about. In fact, at the Urban Land Institute meetings last week in Chicago and the Recreational Council, talking very much about healthy communities and healthy places. We think whole living is a better description in terms of, we describe it as an idea of balancing work with play, indulgence with discipline, good living with well-being, and luxury with simplicity. It's the notion in travel that all aspects of the experience contribute to well-being. So it's not just about wellness or pampering ourselves in terms of the spa. It's really about balance at the end of the day. And one of the first people we've seen at the forefront of this particular trend is, no surprise, Whole Foods, which has launched a travel company called Whole Journeys, which is focused on food, cooking, health, wellness, and cultural travel experiences. This is very much in the nascent early days, but we think that we would see more of this in the years to come. In fact, Urban Land Institute has launched a 2-year project this year focused on creating healthy places.
Thank you, Chris. This is probably my favorite of the trends that we have in our top 20 list, that being culinary tourism. Essentially, this trend has grown into one of the most dynamic and creative segments of tourism. Many destination marketing organizations have created partnerships with chefs, restaurants, and food tours to help tell their stories and market their communities around the world. I also think it's a conspiracy to help me put on weight when I'm traveling on business, but that's another subject. According to the Global Report on Food Tourism from the UN World Tourism Organization, 88% of destinations, 88% consider gastronomy a strategic element in defining their brand and image of their destination. The culinary tourist is identified as a tourist or a visitor who, at the destination, frequently dines out, purchases local food, consumes local beverages, dines at high-class restaurants, goes to farmers markets and local food opportunities, but rarely eats at a franchise restaurant. In addition, the culinary tourist segment is more educated, earns a higher income, and is characterized by its variety-seeking tendency towards food and drink. The International Culinary Tourism Association says that 27 million leisure travelers have participated in culinary-related travel in the last 3 years in the United States. They spend approximately $51 billion annually on travel-related expenses, and that includes $12 billion directly on culinary activities while traveling. In the U.S., culinary tourists are most likely to be more cultured and affluent. I think the fact that 88% of destinations are focused on culinary tourism as part of their strategy speaks volumes for the development of this opportunity in many destinations around the world. I think it will require destinations to find what's different about our destination and really promote it. There's a great activity or a great event in Vancouver called Dine Out Vancouver, which all restaurants participate in, usually in off-season months of the year, and it's a great opportunity for Vancouver and the surrounding areas to promote their terrific restaurants and vineyards, etc. It's starting to pull in a lot of traffic, and I think a lot of destinations are seeing this opportunity, and will also focus on how they can grow their own culinary tourism market.
Going green is something that's been much talked about. Sustainability in travel and sustainability in general is talked about over the past decade. And we continue to monitor this trend and to look for whether it's getting any traction with travelers today. And while this is one of the most dynamic and creative segments of tourism in the future, we see that very few people actually rate the eco-friendliness as an important factor in their purchasing decision. It's interesting to note that while tourism accounts for roughly 6% of global GDP, it accounts for 5% of global emissions, approximately 4% of those accountable to travel and transportation, and 1% from the accommodation sector. So while many hotels and different certification programs, whether that's LEEDs in the development industry or Green Globe, etc., have been applied for articulating and communicating with consumers the eco-friendliness of a particular hotel, we don't yet see that as an attractor in terms of being a primary focus or a competitive edge. That said, when it comes to at the destination level or a community-wide level, we can see what happens when a destination's environment declines. And you don't have to look further than Beijing, where we've seen many stories over the past year about the degrading air quality and air pollution there. And while visits to China are down only in the single digits this year to date, they've dropped roughly 50% so far this year. And we think that's a clear indication that while sustainability and eco-friendliness may not be gaining traction on a property-specific level, at a macro level when it comes to the destination, it's critically important. In fact, one example is right here in Vancouver, where I'm located. The city has put together a green capital campaign to become the world's greenest city by 2020. And that's not only as part of an economic development strategy to attract sustainable oriented businesses and companies, but also as a tourism development strategy as well, forecasting that more and more people will be looking to go to green destinations, which of course all of the hotel certifications and other programs feed into that, but it's the bigger picture and the bigger story that we believe consumers are looking for and that will resonate with them in the future.
Thank you, Chris. Let's turn now to athletic events and sports tourism. From a tourism perspective, sports really split into two different groups. First, the passive group of spectator sports, going to a National Football League or a baseball game, and the active sports, participatory sports like running in the New York Marathon. For a destination, the chance to play host to a major event like the Olympic Games or the World Cup is an especially important event and plays a distinct role in shaping the future of those cities, those destinations. Not only does it play as a magnifier of the multiplier effect of tourism, but it builds on, of course, the great spirit of the people of the place itself. The World Cup in South Africa in 2010 is a great example of how that event really helped to shape South Africa as a destination. It represented a lot more than 30 days of football, even though football is very important for South Africa. It's about establishing a legacy for the destination. There's many kinds of athletic events or sports events that really play into this category, ranging from the Olympic Games or from World Cup or mega events like that to the local softball league tournaments. All in all, of course, in the mega category, there's usually and almost always massive capital investment that goes along with these athletic events, whether it be new airports or new infrastructure or new hotels, or you can look and see what they're doing in Sochi, Russia right now. It's reported that they've invested more than $50 billion in preparing for the Winter Olympics, which is reported to be the most money spent for any event ever, especially athletic event. That's on one hand. On the other hand, just the daily spending that can be achieved from local tournaments or sporting events down at the amateur level, also extremely important. I read an article last week, I guess it was just a few days ago, about the marathon that was just run last weekend in Savannah, Georgia. The marathon, I guess it's the second or third running of the marathon there, and they've scheduled it in a very low season for tourism in Savannah. But as you would guess, all of the hotels are full, all of the restaurants are full. It's a major moneymaker for Savannah. In fact, is really solidified what's happening there in the end of October, early November. So they're very gung-ho about sports tourism in that respect. Looking at Fort Lauderdale, in 2012, sports tourism in Fort Lauderdale had an estimated $530 million of economic impact in Broward County alone. That's 600,000 room nights, of course, benefiting the hotels and the restaurants and businesses. So the message, of course, here is that whether it's athletic events or sports tourism, it's big business. And many destinations, while they put lots of resources and effort towards the MICE market, in many respects, they have great opportunity or even greater opportunity for putting resources into sports tourism and athletic events. So something to pay attention as destinations look to diversify their target market and look for opportunities for off-season visitors.
Thanks, Rick. The power of online travel agencies, or OTA, is much noted within the travel and tourism industry. And again, we think it's important to talk about this just because this is not an established trend, but one that's growing. In many of the conferences we've been to over the course of the year, many people have been surprised and taken aback a little bit by a study that was released by Expedia Media Solutions, where they found that people that actually booked vacations visited an average of 38 sites before booking their vacation. So when it comes to all of that time spent investigating and actually going through up to the point of transaction, where are people going? Well, according to Expedia, online travel agencies are capturing 47% of all of that web traffic, while destination marketing organizations are receiving just 6.4%. We think that's important to note, in that the DMOs have always been funded primarily by the hotel industry within their destination, and as such put a strong emphasis on booking travel. But it's important to understand that the role that people seem to be going to DMO websites for is more and more for inspiration and education rather than transactions. Another thing that's important to look at, and based on our own research, we can see that younger travelers are much more likely to use an OTA. In fact, 65% of those under 55 affluent households in the U.S. use an OTA versus 48% of them 55 plus. So in the years to come, OTAs seem likely to capture the majority of the travel industry pie. In fact, some DMOs, such as in New York and San Francisco, have recently adopted a "if you can't beat them, join them" mentality, and have signed agreements with Booking.com. And we think we'll probably see more partnerships like that established in the next few years.
Thank you, Chris. And lastly, number 20, DMO versus DMMO, Destination Marketing Organization versus Destination Marketing and Management Organization, really is a result of, this trend is really the result of the way visitors are looking at these destinations, as Chris indicated, with visitors looking at more than 30 websites before they make their decisions, and only a little bit over 6% of the DMO website getting the traffic. It really begs the question of, what is the future relevance of a DMO if what they do is being provided by 35 other websites or 35 other sources of information. So this transition to organizations that not only market and promote their destinations but manage their destinations is definitely an important consideration. When you move into this additional M for management, essentially that includes a number of additional responsibilities. First of all, creating a suitable tourism environment. Before the visitor is attracted by marketing or arrives at the destination, the right social, economic, and physical environment for a tourist must exist. And creating the right environment includes planning and infrastructure, human resources, product development, technology, and systems development. Destination management also includes delivery on the ground, essentially ensuring that the quality of every aspect of the visitor experience is satisfactory or more than satisfactory, and delivers the value and the quality that the visitors are looking for. And that includes everything from the destinations management organizations supporting product startups to the DMO facilitating events development and management, attractions development, education and training for the broader travel and tourism industry employees, providing business advice for operators and establishments within the local industry, and providing strategy, research, and development for the broader industry. The work that we did in Vancouver earlier this year to help them develop their tourism master plan is a perfect example of a DMO taking charge and deciding to take a broader role in destination development. You can find all the details about our work in Vancouver at the project website, which is vancouvertourismplan.org. But essentially, I think we have only seen the tip of the iceberg on the transition of destination marketing organizations to destination marketing and management organizations. And over the next 10 years, many of the responsibilities for managing the destination, for growing the destination, for developing the destination will reside with many of these tourism authorities, which were historically, 100% marketing and promotion oriented. So a very important trend to keep watch on as we move forward.
Thanks, Rick. Sorry, everyone, we ran a few minutes over. I've got a couple of questions that have been submitted. One of them is with respect to LGBT travel. Do you believe the $200 billion number, and how credible do you believe that is?
I'll jump on that one, Chris. Actually, I do, and I would submit that number is actually a lot smaller than reality, because many LGBT visitors and tourists, are walking down the street at a destination, and you would never know they're in that category. There's a lot of money out there that is being spent by this market segment that is sort of in disguise. You see all the the news reports. They always show people going to the Village or in New York City or other gay-oriented destinations like Castro in San Francisco. But what they don't show is the fact that, these people are also traveling to Branson, Missouri, and they're also traveling to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, places that, they're staying in five-star hotels, they're eating in great restaurants, but not necessarily as easy to identify as you might believe. So in fact, $200 billion by this market segment isn't so hard to believe. And in fact, with greater opportunities for marriage equality in many U.S. states, I think you're going to see a great boost in spending, at least initially, for destination weddings, for honeymoons, and other aspects. I think Hawaii alone estimated that with the change of laws there that happened this week, they will see an annual boost of $60 million in gay weddings and gay travel to Hawaii. So I think that's just a small tip of the iceberg. So yes, I do believe that $200 billion is very doable.
Great, thanks, Rick. Several of you have asked about getting a copy of the presentation. For everyone that's online today, we'll send out an email shortly with a link to SlideShare where you can view these slides or share them with others or download them if you like. One other question here in terms of any comments, Rick, on tourism in Central Europe, especially the Georgia itself?
I'm not a great, I don't have a lot of background on tourism in Central Europe and Georgia, so unfortunately I'm not able to comment.
Okay. If anyone else has any other questions, otherwise we'll wrap up. If you had a question, you could submit it in the chat window. One comment here was for someone that was, as a fellow tourism consultant, I'm encouraged to be observing trend number 20, building in the U.S. long after it's been the case in developing countries, Canada and Australia. And that comment was with respect to the evolution from destination marketing organizations towards destination marketing and management organizations. It's interesting to note that we were at DMAI this summer, and that this conversation seems to be just very much at the fore of DMOs in the U.S. So I think that comment is pretty succinct in terms of, yes, DMOs in places such as Canada and Australia are a little bit more advanced in terms of looking at their involvement and role in the management of the guest experience, and that will certainly be trend will certainly take root stronger as U.S. DMOs play a larger role. All right, then. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. We'll send you out the email if you'd like more information about Resonance. You can go to resonanceco.com. You'll also see on the homepage, if you're interested in our report on affluent travel and leisure and recreational development, you can download a copy of the 2012 report on our homepage. You can also reach Richard or I by email. Our addresses are there on the screen. Or please follow us on Twitter. I'm at CRFair, and Richard is at R.Cutting-Miller. Thanks again, everyone, for participating, and we look forward to connecting with you again in a webinar or conference in the near future.
Thanks very much.
Bye-bye.